Hello. Hello, everyone. Yep. So you're here live again? Yeah, I think I lost a bit of connection, but if you're here live with us, right, do give us a like or a love. Right. So today we are going to talk about yet another US stock, right? And as you can see from the banner, right, we'll be going to talk about this particular oil giant called Chevron, right, or CVX. Right. So there has been a lot of energy stocks that have been rising so far. So we thought that it would be a good opportunity to talk about one of these energy stocks for today. Right, and today joining me once again is none other than FINANCIALmissy.
Hello, hey guys, hi guys. You guys are with us today. Please give us a thumbs up or a love so that we know that you guys are online with us today, and you guys can hear me loud and clear. Because why? I have an issue on my end, and what issue on my end is that I think there's some issues in my audio. I can't really hear this conversation. I can't really hear this sharing. So please do type in the chat below that you guys can hear me loud and clear because I can't hear myself either. So please do yeah, type in something so that I know whether you guys can hear me. Just let me know. Awesome. Okay, I saw somebody typing some chat with me. Okay, cool. So today, what we are going to share with you guys today, I'm not sure whether the trade engineer actually, mentioned anything about it because I can't hear how he actually opened this session earlier. But nevertheless, we are going to talk about this particular stock, and this particular stock is called Chevron. Right. Thanks, Luke. Thanks for typing your chat so that I actually know that you can hear me because I really can't hear myself. Okay, let me see where I can connect this part. And of course, let me share my screen without further ado. Yeah, share. I hope I can share my screen. It looks like it's okay. It looks like it's working well. Okay, say yeah. Awesome. Okay, and just give me a minute. Let me just put this here. Okay. So yeah, a bit lag on my end. Okay. Very simply, today what I'm going to share with you guys is actually this particular stock called Chevron. And first and foremost, before I start anything, as of always, we need to do a bit of disclaimer, yeah, because this is never intended to be a financial advice, but rather something of a sharing. Always do your own daily due diligence because we might be wrong. You need to follow a strategy that works for you. Don't take our words blindly. Don't take it as a recommendation or advice. Always do your own due diligence. Find a strategy that works for you, and that is the strategy that you should follow. All right. So without further ado, just help us do some like, some comment, and if you think that our weekly sharing with you guys is actually something of benefit, something beneficial and helpful for you guys, to help us share around so that more people can benefit from our sharings as well. All right. And the first and foremost today I want to share with you guys is actually, of course, is the market sentiments, right? Because always I would like to really start with the market sentiments to talk about the week. How has the week been? Whether the week has been a good week and what to expect moving forward. All right. So this is how I typically like to start this session. And the market sentiments for last week has been pretty interesting. Look at this chart over there. This is actually a monthly chart. That's why you see it's a bit different from the ones that you usually see, right? So for this monthly chart, you see that the very last candlestick is a green candlestick. Why? Because the month of July has just started. So the green candlestick is only representative for one day and it's not a representation for the whole month of July. But looking at the whole chart as a whole, you will know that currently the market is still on a bear market. The whole of month of June, the candlestick is a very big bearish red candlestick. And what happened on Friday when the market closed? We saw that the Dow Jones fell by 1.3%. S&P for the whole of last week, you saw that Dow Jones fell by 1.3%, S&P lost by 2.2%, and Nasdaq shed 4.3%. This is on a weekly basis to summarize the last week. Although on Friday itself, the market slightly rebounded because there's some positive news that happened in the market itself. Right? And with that, right, actually I wanted to go into the chart. Sorry, today I will be doing a little bit of toggling because it's quite interesting to actually look into the chart proper. Let me share my screen. Another screen. Sorry, multiple screen that I need to toggle. So I hope that the trade engineer can help me out today as well. SPX, correct. All right, so this is SPX 500. This is on a daily chart. All right, this is on the daily chart. Okay, so you see here, yeah, initially when we were at the peak, we know that it's actually on converging and then it subsequently rebounded over here and converged again. All right, so moving forward, as I mentioned last week, currently the market is still uncertain on whether it is going on a bullish trend or a bearish trend or going to consolidate or whatsoever. So the market is undecided. So last week I suggested the market probably goes sideways, right? We have not established any support, any resistance right now over this particular point in time. All right. It seems that it's slightly going sideways and might be hovering around here. How high it will go, how low it will go, we do not know. All right. Nevertheless, if you look at simple moving average 50 over 150, which is a representation of a more of a medium term trending, we see that the 150 is still above the 50. The blue line is still above the purple line, which just means that the market is currently bearish. All right. So to date, right, how much has the S&P actually shaped? Let's see, the price range from the top to where we are currently. All right, the market has already shaped 20.53%. Wow. Okay, it's pretty much a discount, but the market is still going on a downward trend. We do not, as a long-term investor or as a more conservative investor, we do not want to catch a falling knife. I know that there are a lot of people out there talking about dollar cost averaging, talking about, buying with the same amount of money, you can buy more units now or what's not. What goes slower will go slower. We'll always want to actually follow the momentum and ride the wave. So if you decide to go in now, just be prepared that if it further, retraces downwards, you might see your portfolio in red lah. So if you are comfortable with that, then do whatever strategy that works for you. Ultimately, this is the message that I want to bring across. But for myself, I don't advise if you guys are looking at the stock market. Always follow the momentum. Try not to, don't catch a falling knife. Like, it's actually not very wise to do so. Unless you guys have a lot of money to always, go in periodically, then by all means. All right, so let's look at Fibonacci. I was also looking at Fibonacci earlier today when I was looking at the market. So actually, to be honest, this kind of a weekly session is really quite beneficial for myself as well. Why is that so? Because it helps me to actually build up a momentum to actually review the market on a weekly basis, to advise yourself and to keep myself up to date as well. So I guess it's pretty much a win-win situation, right, guys? So I kind of like to do this kind of stuff for you guys as well. Benefits you guys, and at the same time I get to learn something as well. So I actually changed this S&P chart to a monthly chart. You can see here it's a monthly chart. Right. So actually, I would like to actually do a Fibonacci to see actually, how high or how low it will actually might go further downwards lah. All right. So I want to see on the monthly one because I'm actually a lot more of a long-term investor. unless I do trading, that's a different thing. But if I'm looking at a more investor point of view, I normally look at the weekly to monthly. And you see, right, on the month of June, it's a very big bearish red bar. All right. There's actually no signs that you are talking about medium to long term wise that will actually be a reversal in trend. What we want to see is whether at this particular point 0.62, whether this particular in July itself, whether there's any bullish signs that actually suggest that it will go upwards. If otherwise, for now as an investor, I'll actually take a chill pill, see how it goes. And if I do zoom in into more of day-to-day Fibonacci, right? Let me see. Let's make this a bit smaller. Okay, let me just delete this. And if I want to actually make it a more of a short-term trend rather than looking into something long-term, and I am, let me see here, because if you look at the daily chart, there's a lot of noises involved. But nevertheless, we can actually look at some of the noises. Okay, let's see here. From this particular point to this particular point. Let me move the chart. Yeah, I cannot move the chart. Let me why my computer decides to rebel. Anyways. Wait. Okay, never mind. Let me change this to 8. Yeah. Yep. Okay. So you look at this chart, particularly at this particular point in time, you see that at this retracement point, let me make it a bit bigger. Right. Okay, you see this particular candlestick. This particular candlestick is actually a doji. It has actually hit the 0.62, which is pretty much a good indicator. And the next day, it actually came out with a green candlestick, a very green bullish candlestick. And from there, it might go further, might actually rebound to go upwards, but high it will go rebound upwards. We need to do another Fibonacci to actually see the rebound of the forecasted level that it will go. But nevertheless, what we want to know is that moving forward, we might see a bit more volatility. There might be an upside motion upwards. To what point you do a flip, but I do not want to really do a speculation over here, because as investors we want to look more towards a medium to long term trend. But in this shorter period point in time, short term wise, you might see a bit upward trend, and from there you can actually establish your support line and the resistance line. Yeah, guys. All right. So this is something that I want to share with you guys. And on Friday itself, if I've not forgotten, right? If I'm not wrong, the mortgage, the 30-year mortgage, right? From the 30-year home mortgage in US, the loans are actually coming down slightly. Okay, so this is actually the positive news that came out on Friday itself. Pretty exciting because it has been going upwards trend for the longest time. To see it coming down is actually a comfort level to most of the investors out there, especially people who actually likes to invest in US property and what's not. But one thing to note is that the home prices in the States is still high. Okay, we are not officially in a proper recession right now, although we do see a lot of companies doing a lot of retrenchment. Shopee, crypto.com, oh yes, crypto winter. There's a lot of movements in the market right now, especially in the crypto space. So yeah, be safe out there. I just decided to invest in the ledger as well, just in case of any insolvent situations that are happening to my brokerage. But yes. So today the topic is actually on Chevron. So let me step back to Chevron. I've been digressing a bit more and go back to the PowerPoint slide. This one. Yep. And I play. All right, coming back to Chevron itself, right? Let me just forward. Yes. Okay. So Chevron itself on Friday itself, we see a upwards trend. Upwards on Friday, it actually went up $1.3, and it is actually a 1.19% increment on Friday. You see, based on the chart itself, the overall Chevron chart, it is actually a daily chart. Okay, you see that for the longest time it has been going up, and that it has actually slowed down in momentum, followed by a very steep decline, and now currently we are probably going to consolidate further for Chevron as well. What is Chevron? What does this corporation actually do? So let us take a read here. Chevron actually works through its subsidiaries. Yeah, Chevron has 3 companies under its name. Okay, in case you guys do not know, what are the 3 companies? I kind of forgotten about it. You guys can Google, but nevertheless, Chevron actually engages in integrated energy and chemicals operations worldwide. So it's a worldwide company. It operates in 2 segments, yeah, upstream and downstream. What is upstream? Okay, for you guys, for engineers out there, you might actually know what is upstream and what is downstream, but for the lay people like me who is in healthcare and finance, you don't really know about the engineering and about the commodities, you might not know. But basically, upstream is anything that deals with the exploration, development, production, transportations of any energy, right? For in this case, it's crude oil, natural gas. That includes processing, liquefaction, transportations of all these natural resources downwards to the downstream, whereby it actually get processed and ultimately being sold lah. All right, being sold, and that's where they actually earn money from this whole process itself. All right. So additionally for Chevron, right, it's actually involved in cash management, debt financing activities, insurance operations. Okay, I have no idea why it's Chevron in insurance, but this is what it is. Real estate activities. Okay. And also technology businesses. Yeah. And this company was formerly known as Chevron Texaco Corporation and changed its name to Chevron Corporation in 2005. Headquartered in California, and it's actually under the energy sector. All right. So talking about Chevron, right, it's very interesting to know what are the competitors for Chevron, because it's like in Singapore, if not been traveling overseas, in Singapore we see Shell, we see Caltex. By the way, Caltex is under Chevron, yeah. We see this two, we see BP, we see. I don't normally go and pump my petrol. Yeah, I mean, okay lah. So basically, all these big companies, but nevertheless, let us look at the competition in the industry to see where does Chevron stand. Okay, right. So there are a lot of different companies out there. We talk about ExxonMobil, Shell, Petro China Company, Total Energies, and what's not the smaller ones. But nevertheless, the biggest one in the market right now is actually ExxonMobil, and Chevron itself is actually number 2, second largest company. All right. Very interestingly, market cap for it is slightly lower than Exxon, standing at 284 B. And enterprise value is about 302, slightly lower than Exxon as well. Number of employees is significantly lower than Exxon, standing at 42K. Right. And yeah. And fun fact, in case you guys do not know, Chevron actually, was included in the what's that thing called? Fortune 500. And it was ranked 16 last year. All right. And let's look at the Chevron one. How is the basic financial health for this particular company? Is it a company that we want to consider because it's financially very healthy, that we can actually close 2 eyes and invest long term? Or is there better options out there? It's something that as investors is very important to know, because we do not want to invest in a company that ultimately don't earn us money. We want to invest in a healthy company that we know that will always be there, and for putting our money with them actually earns us more money and not lose money, right? So looking at this company, okay, the revenue segments. The revenue segments, as you can see, I actually got this chart from Hyperchart. It is actually very interesting. Hyperchart is actually very interesting because it makes everything in a visual form that I don't have to look into the numbers and guess whether it's going up, going down, and do a comparisons or whatnot. everything, the pictures are just so striking. So I decided to just copy and paste. So based on this hyper chart, the revenue segments for Chevron itself is not very stable, as you guys can see. All right. Since 2016 all the way to 2021, you see up down, up down, up down. Not a consistently profiting company, as you can tell. And in terms of revenue and operating income wise, it is also the same. Sometimes they make money, sometimes it doesn't earn money, sometimes doesn't earn as much. There's a lot of fluctuations inside. And also, if you look into the net income, there are also a lot of years where the company is losing money. All right. And of course, we look into the margins, the different kinds of margin. The gross margin, defined by the golden line at the top, stands at 40 odd percent. Okay. But then the operating margin fluctuates at the bottom, as so as the profit margin. Profit margin for investors is something very important because we want to see that the company is actually making money. All right. And looking at the key ratios, PB ratio 1.96, somewhat overvalued for a bit. ROE, return of equity, is 14.69, not the best, but the debt to equity ratio is very good. The debt to equity ratio stands at 0.2, which is good. Nevertheless, the other indicators like the margin wise, the profit margin, the growth, the cash flow, everything is pretty much unstable. And if you are looking at the investing point of view, the financial health for Chevron is not the healthiest. Why is it so? When we are looking at energy company, right, there's something that you need to strike your mind immediately. Something is very important for us to know. Last week we talked about another energy company, last week we are talking about aviation company, RTX, if I'm not wrong. And from there we actually talk about the aviation aim to reach zero emission by 2050. And the energy sector is also the same. They want to aim for a net zero emission in 2050. So what does that mean? When we talk about energy company, one thing that needs to come to your mind immediately is pollution. Because if you don't take care of our environment, if you don't take care of our earth, what happens to us in, 50, 100, 200 years later? Right? So it's one generation passing on to another generation. And now there's a lot of focus on clean energy. There's a lot of focus on talking about environmental sustainability. All right. So when we talk about energy, we need to think what are the challenges of Chevron. Although it's really a very big company, although it's something that has a lot of prospect in terms of everybody needs this commodity of oil, and oil is a necessity for our day-to-day living. But what is the main challenges? Why are their profits not that high, or why is it not stable? We need to look what is happening, and for that, right, we automatically think about environmental sustainability, and we do some googling. Okay, you will know that this particular company, Chevron itself, has been involved with a lot of cases, being fined for pollutions and what's not. The latest one is actually they're being fined nearly 120 million to clean up 3 chemical plants after allegations that it violated Clean Air Act. 120 million so is a lot of money. Okay, so if you guys do not know what is Chevron Phillips, is actually another company. It's an independent company that is founded by Chevron as well as Phillips Corp or something, I can't remember. So it founded this company, this independent company, is a co-venture in 2000, right? That now the latest in March, they actually said that they are being fined for 120 million, a lot of money. In the past, back in 2011, yes, 2011, Chevron also was being fined 8 billion for Amazon pollution. So currently, this particular company, Chevron, is actually trying to invest more money to look at how they can improve their system, of which they had made progresses. It was actually reported they had made progresses for 36 projects, but only 5 came up to realization last year. All right. So I think for this particular company, financial health wise is not the best. They have a lot more improvement to actually improve upon themselves, and a lot of area that they actually have to work to make sure that this company stays relatable and sustainable towards and responsible to the environment as well. So I would say that it's not the best company that investor wants to look into. And for those of you guys are more of a lower risk Warren Buffett investor, I'm not too sure whether this is something that of your interest, but personally for me, not really, yeah, because when it comes to all these commodities company, for one, the profit is actually not very high per se, and it's very opportunistic. What do I mean by opportunistic? Let me share another screen with you guys. Let me go back to this tree. Stop share this and share this. 诶，在哪里呢？ Yep. Okay, this one. Okay, guys, CVX, CVX, New York, yeah. Okay. Oh, I got another flip chart. Let me remove this. Hide. Hide. I didn't know I can hide, but yeah. So what do I mean by opportunistic, right? Is let me open this thing. This is the oil. This is the oil chart. Yeah, so we know that let me just reset this chart. Yeah, so we know that Chevron is a energy company, and currently we are having the Ukraine-Russia war. I do not know when it's going to end. Yeah, so nobody really knows. So if you do a comparison between the oil as well as Chevron Corporation, you see that this company moves very closely in relation to the oil prices, right? If the oil prices spike up, this one spike up. If the oil prices spike down, this one spike down. All right, very common sense lah, huh? Currently, right now, if you look at this particular chart itself, we know that long-term trend still stays intact, right? With the SMA 50 slightly going downwards. Whether it will go further downwards, it really depends on the situation that's happening in between Russia and Ukraine, and how much demand and supply that is actually being affected by this war, right? So I don't really want to predict what is the future for that. But then you look at this particular point, okay, it's very clear that Chevron, in terms of technical analysis, is pretty much in consolidation. It went all the way up. It went sideways, like up, down between these two lines, support and resistance line. Of which you look at this part is very interesting. Let me highlight, yeah. Okay, so for beginners out there who don't really know technical analysis, this is something that you must know. Okay, let me see. Yes, awesome. I can do this. Yay. Okay, not the best circle, but please bear with me. Okay. Oh, sorry. I got the dot here. Let me delete this. Okay, so this part. For investors out there who doesn't really know technical analysis, if you see this kind of signal, it's a signal to exit lah, huh? Okay, why is it a signal to exit or to take profit? I shouldn't say exit out. I should say take profit. Okay, can I put this down? Put this up? Put this down? Put this up? Okay, cool. Right. So you see, this one, right, can be what we call as a double top, like Mickey Mouse head, huh? Just that the center part is a bit smaller. You see this very big red bar that retraces back to the resistance line, right? If you miss this, the market has gave you another opportunity to look at this. This is actually a doji that is actually pointing downwards. The market pushed the price all the way up and push it back down. That's why you see the body is very small. All right. And for investors out there, if you see one Mickey Mouse here and the second Mickey Mouse here appear, which is so bearish, this is where you can actually consider to come out lah, huh? You can put a stop loss here or what's not, or trailing stop loss to actually get out of the market before a proper crash comes down, a proper flush down comes down. All right. Okay, so this is for beginners. If you this is a very beginner chart reading skill. So yep. So if you see this kind of a pattern, this is where you want to take profit. Very important, right? Before it flush down and then we see our portfolio in red. From green to red is actually quite heart wrenching. I have actually experienced it so many times. So so always be safe in the market. But nevertheless, where is this particular company going? Let me just do a very simple flip. Up, down. Sorry. Let me just delete this. Okay. Okay. Okay, simple. Okay, so I just take this part as an upwards motion and we assume that we do not know how low it's going to go down because currently there's no actually a very firm trend over here as well. So for here, you see this particular bar, this particular red bar actually hit the 1.27. You hit 1.27 because it's a very bearish one, you can actually somewhat think that it will actually go downwards. And moving forward, you see all this bar, right? It went up a bit, but it's all not a signal that the market is ready to rebound. So you see particularly this particular bar itself, this green doji bar that's pointing downwards, is also showing that it is somewhat still consolidating. And yet on Friday, this particular bar happened, this particular red doji bar, which is so exciting. Why? Because it shows that might be a momentum upwards, right? So whether it's actually a time to enter for this particular stock for people out there who are actually looking at investing in this particular company, probably you can go in can put in an entry price a little bit higher than this Friday doji red bar to see whether the market actually brings it upwards. And if it does, be very safe and you might want to actually cash out before it reaches the support, right? All right. So this is what I've got for you guys here. And I probably want to actually return the time to the trade engineer to share with us his analysis, his take on this particular company. If you guys have any question, this is also the time that you guys want to type in the chat. Let me know any questions that you guys have, and I can help to actually explain my analysis of this company as well. But nevertheless, whatever I share with you, you need to take it with a pinch of salt. Do your strategy that works for you. That is really, really very important. I cannot stress more. All right.
All right, great. Thanks, Financial Missy, for that very insightful sharing of Chevron. And once again, right, for those of you who are still here with us, right, do give us a like or a love if you enjoy Financial Missy's analysis earlier. Right. So without further ado, let me proceed right on talking about my analysis, my take of Chevron. Right, and before I do that, let me share my screen. All right. Okay, yes. So, is there opportunity in Chevron, right? CVX. So let's, go on to the topic proper. But, before I begin, right, once again,
Oh, it seems like the trade engineer actually got disconnected. Uh, Yeah, I think he got disconnected right now. Maybe you can give him a couple of minutes for him to come back on StreamYard as well. Okay, there's a question from Luke Ong. Where do you get 10-year financial statement since Morningstar does not provide it anymore? Okay, very simple. Basically for me, typically I don't look at 10 years. I look at minimally 3 to 5 years. So there are a couple of areas that you can look at. For me, I actually do a little bit of Yahoo Finance as well. Yahoo Finance will give you a good 3 years lah, of financial history of a particular company. Nevertheless, if you want to look more in depth to a longer time frame, there's two other websites that you can actually check out as well. Maybe I can share my screen so that you guys can actually have a look on how it looks like. Okay, yeah. So one of it is actually this thing called Hyperchart. All right, Hyperchart is actually a free software lah. I mean, it's free web page that you guys can take a look at. For Hyperchart wise, it doesn't really give you a full 10 years. Excuse me. It might give you a good couple of years for you to actually look at the trends of the company. If otherwise, this is actually another quite a good decent web page that you guys can look at. It's called Jita. For Jita wise, you need to actually open the account, and good news, opening your account is free. Yeah, so for Jita wise, they have more than 5 years lah of history for you guys to take references on as well. Most of the documents, most of the numbers that you need is actually here. Very excitingly. If otherwise, what I typically like to do is we are Yahoo Finance. Yeah. I normally find a way that it's most like easy for us to check, such that you don't want your stock analysis to take up like 1 hour, 2 hours, then that defeats the whole purpose of investing, because it doesn't make investing fun anymore. So this is actually another area that I typically look at. They have all the ratios here and what's not. Pretty exciting. If you want for the past 3 years, it's all here as well lah. So this is to answer Luke's question, right? This is where I get my other informations as well. And I do see that the trade engineer is back. If you guys still have any questions, to type in the chat. If not, I'll pass the time back to him.
All right, sorry guys, my internet connection is a bit unstable. So hopefully I last through this session. But do let me know. Do exercise some patience if if I disconnect again later. Right. So let me continue where I left off. So I was talking about our last stock analysis, right, last week. Right, and it was on Visa and Mastercard, right? We were talking about last week. We were doing a comparison between the two. Right, so let me first do a quick recap, right, of what we have actually talked about for Visa, right? And this was the 6 things, right, that I mentioned last week for Visa, right? So first of all, we went to look at the weekly chart, right? And we saw that it was testing the 200 SMA at the time, right? And that was something that is a bit promising, right? Because it could be the support. Right, and on the daily chart, on 50-day SMA and the 200-day SMA as well, right, we saw that the 50 SMA was actually less than the 200-day SMA. So, we concluded that it was still a bit bearish in the intermediate to long-term basis. Right, and also the daily chart, right, it was testing the support zone. It actually, rebounds from that support zone at that time. And this support zone was tested numerous times in the past. Right, so there was about 186 to 190 US dollars. And, it was also still trading below, in this descending channel, right? And as well as below that downtrend line. So technically, right, it was still in a bearish momentum. And we also point out, all these resistance zones to watch out for, right? If the price actually makes a bounce to the upside. Right, that was the 5th thing that we talked about. Then last but not least was on the RSI and MACD, right? So that's Let's see, right? And the RSI and MACD wise, right? We saw that it was turning up, right? Last week we reviewed Visa, and that was a bit on the positive side. There was a positive sign that prices could make a bounce to the upside, right? So if you want to see more, this video in detail, you can check out my last week TikTok video, right, on my TikTok channel at The Trade Engineer, or can just watch last week's Facebook video, right, for more details. Right, so in summary, right, what we talk about for Visa, right, we had these bulls and bear arguments, right? The bull side of things is that it is supported by that 200 SMA on the weekly chart. It successfully bounced off that strong support zone on the daily chart at about $186 to $190 4 times in total. And you saw that the RSI and MACD was turning up on the daily chart. But on the bear side of things, right, the 50 SMA and it's still below that 200-day SMA. And it is still trading below the downtrend line and within that descending channel. So what we mentioned then, right, as a suggestion for trading, right, is to we could consider placing a short-term long trade, right, with a cut loss below that strong support zone and take profit at that first resistance zone, right, all around that downtrend line. And we can also place a short, right, but to be safe, we wanted to maybe wait for the price to go up first, test that channel line, upper channel line on the downtrend line, and if it is convincingly resisted, and we see the MACD becoming more negative, we can then perform a short trade, right? So let's see, right, what happened to Visa this week, right? And this is the updated chart, right, on the weekly time scale, right, for this week, right? And once again, right, we see that the Visa price, right, is once again approaching that 200 SMA on the weekly chart. In fact, this was the last week candle, right, or last week bar. And you can see it's a red bar, right? And it actually, is the bottom of it. It actually, seems like it's approaching, that 200 SMA. Right, so it's retesting this level as a support. And if we zoom in on the daily chart, right? This is the daily chart, updated daily chart. Basically, there's no change in terms of the 50-day SMA and 200-day SMA. Right, the 50-day SMA is still below the 200 SMA, and it is still bearish in the intermediate to long term. In terms of support zone, right, this was support zone we identified last week, and you can see this week, it has come down a little bit, right, but it is still trading above this support zone, right. Also, for the downtrend line, descending channel, you can see the price is still trading within this descending channel, right? Still within it, these two lines, and it is still below this downtrend line. So it's still bearish, right, in the intermediate term. RSI and MACD, right? RSI wise, it has kind of turned flat, right? You can see it's turned flat over here. And the MACD wise, it is, although it's still in the positive region, but it is slightly decreasing or slightly staying constant. So so it's good that it's positive, right? But we still have to see whether what will happen next, right? So right, to recap, right, we had this conclusion last week, which I went through just now. And if we actually followed this, we would have initiated a long position, right? And we are fortunately will be in a floating loss position. But we haven't hit that first take profit price, or it hasn't hit that cut loss price. So let's see how it goes, right? And which direction it will eventually head towards. And Mastercard, right? Mastercard wise, in terms of the price movement, it is actually very, very similar to Visa. But let's quickly recap what we went through, right? So for Mastercard, right, I also pointed out the 6 things, and it was very, very similar to what I pointed out for Visa, right? So we also took a look at the weekly chart, right? 200 SMA, it was testing that 200 SMA as well on the weekly chart. Not as many times as Visa, but it was testing at the time. Daily chart wise, 50 SMA and 200 SMA, right? It is, we saw that it was slightly below the 200 SMA, right, over here. So it's slightly bearish. The gap wasn't as big as Visa, but still below. Support zone wise, right, it was also just bounce out of this support zone, right? So the value, right, for support zone is a bit different, right? But it has, it's exhibiting the same kind of behavior as Visa, right? So it's also quite a strong support zone. Similarly, right, for Mastercard, it was also trading within this descending channel, right, and also below that downtrend line, right? So it is also a bit bearish in the intermediate term. Right, and we also point out all these resistance zones, right, to watch out for if price actually makes a bounce to the upside. Right, and the last thing, right, we talked about was the RSI and MACD, similar to Visa, and both of them were turning up at that time. And let's take a look, right, at what happened, right, ever since then, right? In fact, for this week, Mastercard, price has actually moved in a similar manner as Visa. And let's take a look. But before that, right, just a recap, right, what are the kind of things here, and essentially the same, very similar to what I mentioned for Visa, right? I shall not go through the specifics, maybe a bit different, right? But it is basically very similar. So let's take a look, right, at what has happened, right, this week. And you can see for this week, right, Mastercard, this is the current candle, right, for this week. And it's on the revised weekly chart. And you can see that, it is once again approaching the 200 SMA on the weekly chart. 50-day SMA and 200-day SMA also the same, no change. The gap has also been widening. Strong support zone, right? So this strong support zone, it has actually came back down on the daily chart recently, and it is now testing this strong support zone once again. Right? You can see it's testing the upper region of the strong support zone at about $312. It is still trading in this downtrend line and descending channel, right? So no change to that. MACD wise and RSI, right? RSI similarly is also flat. MACD, it is positive, right? But it's not really that positive, only slightly positive, right? So with that, this was the trading idea we had, which was very similar to Visa. And in the same aspect, right, you might have initiated a long position, but it is currently hasn't hit the first take profit price, nor has it hit the cut loss price. So that's a quick recap, right, of what has happened for Visa and Mastercard. In case any of you, are in a position right now for these two particular stocks. Right, and that was just a quick recap, right, of that two stocks. So if you like what I've been sharing so far, right, don't forget to click that like or love button once again. Right, and now on to today's stock pick, right, which is none other than Chevron, right? FINANCIALmissy has delved into a lot of detail into Chevron, right? And let's take a look at what other things I have to offer, right, for Chevron. So over here, I have a price chart comparison, right, between Chevron, right, which is CVX, as well as the S&P 500, right? So you can see, right, the chart, the direction itself is a bit different. You can see that, S&P 500 been climbing all this way, right? And then Chevron hasn't really been climbing as much, right? But over at this point in time, right, where S&P 500 seems like hitting a peak, that's where Chevron actually started to climb, and it actually climbed quite tremendously, right? So it's kind of an inverted trend, right? One is dropping here, right, and the other is actually climbing quite rapidly, right? Until recent times where Chevron seems to have hit a peak and started to fall back down in the same direction as S&P 500. Right, but I can see that there is a divergence in trends here, right? And that has to do with what has happened or what has transpired in the past few months, right? As what we saw, the oil price has climbed. We had the Russia-Ukraine war. All these are the catalysts, right, that actually caused the stock price for this oil giant to actually climb tremendously. Right, so let's take a look at some recent news headlines, right? That are surrounding this particular stock, right? This particular stock, Chevron. So in recent news, right, there has been a lot of talk about energy stocks, right? Because not just Chevron, but a lot of the energy stocks in US or around the world are actually climbing, right, in recent times, and it is in direct contrast to the wider market. So over here, right, we have this headline news from CNBC, and what is mentioned here, right, is that one of the companies or analysts, JP Morgan, actually said that energy stocks, right, are the best bet in the market right now. And from this from FT Financial Times, right, he also mentioned that U.S. energy stocks buck dismal trend with massive outperformance, right? So can see that there have been this trend of energy stocks being very bullish as recently. Right, another news right from Forbes: energy stocks jump as oil price surges again, and prices will remain elevated through the summer. So as we saw earlier from FINANCIAlmissy's analysis, energy stock has a very good correlation, right, with oil prices. So when oil price rise, energy stock price might also follow suit because their profit might also increase. So let's take a look in more detail in this article, right? So in this article, they actually attributed why this oil and gas prices actually remain elevated, right? So one of the reasons is because of inflation, right? As well as ongoing risk to the tight global supply, right? And that is also contributed because of the Russia-Ukraine war. But some analysts are also saying that prices might have peaked and they might decline next year. Right, and we see energy prices, right, not just on the supply side, but demand side has also remained high. And even though there was a slight correction in oil prices, oil prices actually jumped again quite recently. So that's something to take note of, right? Because it does follow the oil price quite closely. And in this news, right, they mentioned that energy companies are one of the best performing stocks, right? Although energy prices are down slightly, right? Some people say they might peak and might moderate by early next year. And some analysts also say that all those countries who wants to sanction Russian oil has already done so, and global oil producers have a strong profit motive to produce more. Right, so there are two stands here, right? One of them is saying that oil and gas price have peaked, right, and they might decline early next year, right? But they never say what happened in the next 6 months, right? It could continue to go up and continue to plateau, but they're saying it might have hit a peak, might hit a peak sometime soon. Right, so energy price gouging is not something that's happening. Energy companies are enjoying robust profits, and but energy companies also pump more oil, right? Because with the sanctions, right, to actually that amount, and that is giving us a shortfall, right, in the market. So the vessel refineries have to pick up the slack, and this might mean more business, right, for the remaining oil companies. Right. So supply is still tight, right? Demand is still high. Some people are staying bearish for oil prices, but over here he also mentioned that oil prices can still remain high, right? So what's the direction for oil price, right? Will it actually go up, go down? No one really knows. But here are just some of their opinions of what might happen, right, for the different time frames. And if we look at the S&P 500 energy sector, right, on the whole, right, just for energy, it has outperformed the market. Right. So oil prices remain high, right? And the Russia invasion could further disrupt global energy markets. Right. So that's that is a snippet of what the article is talking about. But on the other hand, right? This is another article that actually has a take, right, that we should be selling, not just like Chevron, but ExxonMobil or other of these oil giants, right, related to energy stocks, right, because there are numerous headwinds that are facing all these companies. And what are these headwinds, right? So basically, these headwinds are long-term in nature. what is mentioned here is that there could be rising recession risk, right? Consumer backlash from high price in detail, right? Let's go through some of them in detail. So first of all, on the point of recession risk, there is the recession risk, right? That is rising. In fact, this is a more macroeconomic risk, right? Because it might affect all equities, on the whole. So the Fed, right, has tried to raise interest rate and shrink its balance sheet, right, in order to tame inflation, we have been as a result, right, that could result in recession, and with recession, that may not be good for oil prices. Right, historically, oil prices tend to be very sensitive to economic recessions. Right, when there's a recession, the oil price actually drop. Right, so that has, if you look back at history, that has happened before, right, in the past, all the way back in 2000, 2008, even in 2020. Right, so oil prices have cooled off, and that trend could intensify given the risk of recession. Right, and the second point, right, they talk about on demand destruction, right? There are signs of consumer backlash, right? Because gasoline price is sky high now, so that could result in demand destruction, and that could be bad for oil company profits of just how much consumers will pay for gasoline. And the third point that this article talked about was on electrification, right? That something that what the FINANCIAlmissy has alluded to just now earlier as well. We have this trend that we're going green, right? We're going electric, and such an oil company doesn't sit well in this electrification of our economy. Like in fact, we are moving to like vehicles like Tesla, right, or other electric vehicles. A lot of vehicles are going electric, right, as shown here. Right, the demand has spiked, and if this become permanent, right, this might reduce the demand for oil, and basically that means less profits for oil stock. Right, so these are some of the things that we might want to consider, right, if you are going to take a long position in Chevron or any other energy stocks, right, in the market. Right, as a moment, the market might not be pricing in all these long-term headwinds, and they might only be focusing on the short-term catalyst, right, which is the oil price increase. Right, so but eventually, if you are going for a long-term basis, if you are an investor, right, you do have to consider all these long-term headwinds that might be facing the market in time to come. All right, so with that out of the way, right, that just gives a background, a flavor of Chevron. So what do the technicals tell us, right? So let's deep dive into the technicals. But before I do so, if you are enjoying my sharing so far, right, don't forget to hit that like or love button once again. Time frame. Right, so this, first of all, let's look at the 50 SMA and the 200-day SMA. Right, so over here, right, you can see that the 50 SMA, right, is still above that 200-day SMA, right? So that is still a bullish sign. But you can see that the gap has been narrowing quite recently, right? So that that is also a bearish indication. So over here you can see there's both the bullish and the bearish indicator, right? So let's look at more indicators to get more idea, right, of what is going to pan out in the future. Right, the second thing I'd like to point out, right, also on a daily chart, is this slightly long-term uptrend line, right? So you can see that it has been tested once here, twice here, and over here, it has gone down, it has came back up, but it has been largely respecting this line, right? So basically, right, there is also both the bearish and bullish argument for this. On the bearish side of things, right, you can see that it has actually broke this line previously. But on the bullish side, it has actually reclaimed, right, this level as a support. But it remains to be seen whether it can successfully reclaim it in time to come, whether it can push past above this uptrend line. That will be very good for this stock, right? It might point towards a bounce to the upside. Right? But if not, it might actually fall back down. So we have to take note of this uptrend line to see whether it will be the support, right? Whether it can reclaim this as a support, or will it be the resistance that will cause it to fall back down. Right, in terms of horizontal support levels, right? I've drawn out these two horizontal lines that form the support zone. So this support zone is around 140 to 142 US dollars. Right, you can see that it is currently testing this level as a support, right? So if it actually breaks below this support zone, we could be finding the next and see what will happen once it has what happened next, right? Whether this can be convincingly supported or not. Right, fourth thing to take note of, right, is the horizontal resistance level. Right, so I've drawn these two lines here. Right, and it is about 151 to 155 US dollars. There's something to watch out for, right, if the price actually makes a bounce for the upside. And right, we have this short-term downtrend line, right, as the fifth point. Right, so you can see, right, that it has been trading below this downtrend line. Right, it is trying to break past this downtrend line recently, but still ultimately the price is still below this downtrend line. But if it actually breaks above this downtrend line, that could be a bullish indicator to go long, right? Because it might lead to a successful bounce in prices. Right, on the RSI side, right, ultimately, right, it has just went into the oversold region and it is coming out of it, right? It is making a slight upside. So that is a slight bullish indicator, right? And we shall try to see whether this is sufficient, right, to cause price to bounce to the upside. Right, and last but not least, on the 7th point, right, MACD wise, it is also looking a bit positive, right? Although it's still a negative region, that is the bearish sign, but the gap is actually narrowing, right? And it seems like going to make a crossover very soon, right? So that is something that you might want to take note of to see whether it eventually makes a crossover. Right. So I mentioned many things, right? So just to consolidate down here, right? There are many arguments for both the bull and bear side, more than 200-day SMA, right? Something that's quite different, right, as compared to the S&P 500. It is refining some support at that long-term uptrend line, right? It is also remain supported by the support zone on the daily time frame. It is also on the brink, right, of breaking a short-term downtrend line, right? As we saw, price is still below it, but it's on the brink of breaking it. The RSI has just bounced out oversold region, and the MACD appears to be less negative recently. Right, but on the best side, I think SMA has been narrowing recently. Also, right, we have broken that long-term uptrend line. Although it's reclaiming the support, but it has ultimately broken, right? The support zone, it is testing it now, so we are not sure whether it would actually hold in reality, right? And it's still trading that below that short-term downtrend line, right? It hasn't actually broken it yet. Right, and the MACD also still negative, right? So it hasn't turned positive as of the moment. So, right, the big question here is, right, what should you do for trading? Right, at this point, right, just have to mention once again, this is my own opinion, right? Do your own due diligence before trading this particular stock. So what I suggest here, right, is to wait and see first, because we have all these signs, but we don't see any confirmation yet, right? So we have to wait for confirmation. what confirmation do you want to see? Right, basically, if you are going to do a long trade, right, you can consider it if the price remains strongly supported by a support zone, right, and it crosses that downtrend line convincingly, right. Of course, if the MACD makes a cross over the positive region, there will be the added confirmation that you want to see as well. And you can take profit at that resistance zone that I drawn out just now, right. On the other hand, right, we can also place a short entry, which is to sell first and buy back later, right. And basically, what we want to see is that, if that short-term downtrend line is the convincing resistance, right, and it actually breaks that support zone convincingly as well, right, then that could be the confirmation to go short, right. The price might head down further, right, and we can take profit at the lower support levels. Right, so this is just my own opinion, but let's see how this pans out in the next week. Right, so that actually concludes my sharing for Chevron, right? And if you like our sharing for today, right, both me and FINANCIAlmissy, don't forget to hit that like or love button, right? As well as to share this video, right, so that more people can benefit and the Facebook algorithm, can push it out to more people so that more people around around the world even might benefit from our sharing. Right, and if you haven't followed us already, do follow us on our social media pages, right? The handles are shown here for your reference. Right, and leave a comment down below on what you think of my sharing, and suggest the next stop for our next sharing if you have one in your mind. Right, and just another reminder for those of you who are joining us, for the first time, right? We hold this every Sunday, 4 p.m. Singapore time, right? And the next week will be on FINANCIAlmissy's Facebook page. Last but not least, right, before I end off today's session, I would like to urge all of you who are crypto investors or traders, you can tune in live if you are free tonight, on the Cryptoverse NFT Investor Facebook group, right? I'll be sharing on whether on this concept of crypto winter, right? Whether this is the start of crypto winter, what is there to look forward to, right, for cryptocurrency, in particular Bitcoin, right? So if you are a crypto investor or trader, you might want to consider joining me tonight to see what is my take of the future direction of cryptocurrency. Right, and with that, it's been a long session. Sorry for seeing the time a bit. I think it's more than an hour already, but hope all you have gleaned something, right, from our sharing today. And do stay safe, right? The market is still very, very, very much volatile, as pointed out by FINANCIAlmissy. We do have to be more prudent in our trading or investing as of the moment. Right. And sorry for the disconnection just now, right? Hope all you can still hear me loud and clear throughout the whole session, right? And yeah, does FINANCIAlmissy, do you have any last words to add before we close the session for today?
Hey, sorry. My just now in the middle of your session, my camera actually went a bit bonkers. So on my side, there's nothing much to add. I guess as an investor, probably you want to actually look more long term, rather than be very short sighted in whatever you are investing in. Regardless of the company that we are looking in, regardless of what we actually likes to actually put our money with, very importantly, we want to actually invest in companies that ultimately we know are profiting, and we close two eyes and we know it's a strong company, fundamentally a very strong company, that we will not go bonkers. I think it's something very important that that we all need to pay more focus or attention on, to put our money with them, because ultimately we do not want a situation whereby we enter the market and in the snap that it went reversal in trend. But nevertheless, with all good companies, it doesn't mean that it will stay good forever. So it is very, very important for investors like us to actually, periodically, maybe biannually, to actually look into the financial statement to see whether there's any change in fundamentals, and if there's no change in fundamentals, it give us an added confidence and conviction of what our decision is. If otherwise, if you see any change, let's say in management that you don't really know what are they doing, it's always not too late to pull out partial of your funds or full funds lah. Ultimately, we need to be very cautious in putting our money with companies, especially during this period of volatility. Yeah, so be safe out there. A bear market is actually a testament for everyone to actually see where we actually stand, because in a bull market it makes no fool to actually make money lah. So I guess as investors out there, if you guys are still here with us, this is a test for all of us to know our level and be very safe out there. Very important, yeah.
All right. Yes, definitely. I think that's very important for all of you out there, right? To be cautious, right? And there are still opportunities in the bear market, right? There is still opportunities to make money, right? But at the same time, we do have to be cautious as well, right? So do be safe, and do remember to take profits, regularly, as pointed out by FINANCIALmissy. Right. And with that, right, thank everyone for staying with us all this way, right, for more than an hour, right, and hope everyone is going to have great remaining Sunday ahead, right, and all the best for next week, right, and let's take a look to see what will happen in the next coming week, right. So see you guys, and see you guys next week for our next stock picking. Bye bye.
Thank you.